Hi everyone, welcome once again to the 24-bit podcast, and today we are here to talk about something that's exciting, that's coming. And before we get to talk about it, I'm joined by two guests, as you can see them, and if you're listening to this, as you can hear them. I'm going to give them a short time to introduce themselves, but as usual, I'm joined by my colleague
Kanali,
Chenze, Emmanuel here. And for our guests, can you tell us who you are, what you do, and then you can hold while you're here because you're going to get to that next.
Yeah.
Ladies first.
Okay. My name is Naisenya Mungai. I'm the digital delivery lead at Safaricom. So what my work entails is basically to actually create the best environment for developers, not just in Kenya, but in Africa at large.
Thank you.
After hearing that, I'm wondering whether my intro... I'm George Njuguna. I lead the digital and IT team at Safaricom. What my work entails is just making things happen for digital, for the business, just taking Safaricom to where it needs to be as a purpose-led technology company.
Good. And today you've taken Safaricom to us.
Totally. I mean, this is... I don't think we've done one of these, Naisenya.
No, this is our first ever.
Yes.
Yes.
So, sijui kama ni kuinua jamii ama kuinua creative. Lakini kuinua.
Kusupport hustlers.
The fact that you're wearing this hoodie, even if you met me anywhere, I would stop. Lakini even anytime I even meet a Safaricom customer, anywhere, hata ule anafanya bamba tano, the fact that you're our customer, you are worth spending time listening, appreciating, and seeing what we can do better.
Thank you. And the sole reason we are here to talk about something that you're organizing. Naisenya has told us that she's out here to interface with developers, make sure things are going their way. And starting last year, we've had the Safaricom hosting some sort of a developers conference. We call it the Safaricom Engineering Summit, right? Yes. So Naisenya, can you tell us when is it happening before I hand over to Nick?
So we're going to have Decode 2.0 happening in October on the 11th and the 12th at Sarit Center. We are welcoming everyone. We are obviously going to be sharing a link. I'm not sure whether it's going to be live before we air the podcast or not, but yeah, look out for the link.
For those who are watching, will those who come get hoodies like me?
Like yours, eh?
Yes, we are going to have goodies. Hoodies, one being of them.
Okay.
Right. And I think you spoke about Decode, and actually attended like for the 2 days last year.
Yeah.
I attended the entire summit for the 2 days. Actually quite exciting. Met a lot of interesting developers. In fact, I'm in some Telegram group with a number of developers actually networked, from that summit. Yeah. And maybe so that was the first happening, the first edition, right? And the second is actually coming this particular month.
Yeah.
So what is in for the most developers actually coming to attend the summit?
Do you want to take it?
Oh my gosh.
Tough question. Not really, but
no, I'm still remembering him asking about the hoodie and he's wearing. Haijachapa, hiyo ni kuonyesha hoodie zetu ni quality. But we have some different merchandise. All I can let you in this time round, it's gonna be more white.
Okay.
But with the green. But beyond that, this year we've taken Decode to another level. We're going to be launching some new Safaricom products. So some of you may have seen the way Steve Jobs used to launch the new iPhones himself. We're going to be now using Decode to launch things that are very groundbreaking that Safaricom is doing. And I can't say what, but it's going to be first launched at Decode. The second thing that's most exciting is we're going to be doing things that have never been done in this country in terms of engineering and bringing big data, AI, robotics to the forefront. And so we want to communicate that Safaricom is the hotbed of engineering talent, but Kenya is the Silicon Savannah. And so many times they say that those who tell stories rule the world. We want to tell the story of Kenya's engineering talent, especially in digital, in that summit. We'll also have a lot of booths set up that will have a lot of experiential engagement. We'll have a hackathon we'll showcase some of the groundbreaking things we're doing in technology and digital. But also we look to spark what we are calling Africa's digital, igniting the digital renaissance of Africa. So this is going to be, it's not just a summit, it's not just a conference, it's not just an event, it's a revolution that we're starting.
Oh, interesting. Naisenya, apart from just what George said, what do you think, attendees should expect from this summit?
I think what I'm most excited about, I'm not sure whether I should share, but what I'm most excited about is the partnership between Safaricom and AWS on the first ever deep racer in Kenya. So our developers will have an immersion. It's actually currently ongoing on reinforcement learning. So after the 1 week immersion, we're going to see them model some of the cars and then actually race on the D-Day. So it's something that has never been done in Kenya, and really we've only taken up 30 developers to be part of the experience, and considering Safaricom has over 1,500 engineers and we only picked 30 and everyone wants to participate, is something that has sparked an interest even for the guys that are not in data science or AI, and they just want to see how can they upskill to be able to participate in such things. And we are giving them an avenue to learn and take whatever they've learned into an actual race. Yes, so I'm very excited about that.
Oh, interesting. So a lot of lessons to be picked. Chenze, will you be attending?
Yes. and I can't wait to see that race she's talked about.
We're going to have a serious track. Let me tell you, I'm a Formula One fan.
Oh, okay.
And
like
so
him.
Which team? I hope it's not Red Bull.
Max Verstappen.
That's my son's team. What surprises me? I'm the one who got my son the first Red Bull jersey. But now, he's always shouting Red Bull. And me, I'm a Mercedes fan. Money, how can you get your children? Like me, I like Man City, he likes Chelsea. I don't understand how my son is always with, countering me, but please come. Both of you. It's great you came last year. It was our first one. I promise you this year, it's going to be lit.
Right. And I think the seniors tried breaking down what it is. So maybe George, for our listeners, or maybe just anyone who's watching this podcast, could you just maybe break down what the summit is about?
Yeah, allow me to, I know many people may not like history as much, but the theme of this year's summit is igniting Africa's digital renaissance. If you think about the Renaissance, it ran between the 14th and 15th century in Europe. And it was largely about a rebirth of science and art and architecture, beginning in Florence, Firenze in Italy, and then spreading into other cities in Italy, to Vienna and the others. And the Renaissance was a period of great strides in art. That's where you have like the Mona Lisa, Davido, the painting on the Sistine Chapel. And but one of the more interesting things that people don't talk about the Renaissance was that is when the printing press was invented. And that meant people could actually have manuscripts. We believe, and when we study history, that Africa was doing great things long before the Renaissance. This is where things like how to use wind was discovered. And many times we only talk about the pyramids in Egypt, but the kingdoms like Kush and the Benin Wall, that is way bigger than the Great Wall of China. Or at that time, Timbuktu is where we believe education began. And so many great kingdoms, Zimbabwe and many others. And so Mali, we believe that Africa is actually not just the cradle of mankind, but we believe that technology, art, science all started in Africa. And that's why we have set this theme that for some reason, some of our great strides in the development of technology were destroyed. But we believe that this is the time to bring it back. And Safaricom, given the role we play in Kenya and in Africa, it's where it must begin. So this is a renaissance. Renaissance is from a French word that means rebirth. And so we're going to be showcasing that there's great innovations that are happening in Africa, and that's at the core of the summit. And I encourage you guys, your viewers, and the entire community, tech community, creatives, to bring one of the most interesting different things about this Decode. Last year it was about engineering.
Yep.
This year we're bringing creatives, and you bring us together, whether it's music, whether it's art, whether it's drama, something great is going to happen. So we're only growing Decode to be bigger. We're also going to be doing something very interesting in AI, artificial intelligence. I'd say probably we've been doing a lot of experimentation and development in that area. We want to take a lead, not just in Kenya, but in Africa, in terms of an AI policy and framework. I was just talking to a few people in the government, welcoming the announcement the president made last week around AI, and saying, hey, we're launching something, but we're more than happy to not just contribute, but to play a lead role. So last year's Decode, although we called last year 1.0, 2.0 is like almost 200.0 compared to last year.
Interesting. When George was talking about the Renaissance era and Florence and the David and all of that, the current internet sensation in terms of memes on TikTok and everywhere is men every day are thinking about the Roman Empire, right? He is living proof. Anyway, after breaking down the summit and telling us that we can expect from 0 to 200 this year, like 200 times, why now? Like this, we had the first edition last year, now we are going to the second edition, but Safaricom has been around for a while. One of our biggest poster children, that is M-Pesa product, has been around for a while. Why now? Why in 2022? Why in 2023? Why didn't we see Decode like 10 years earlier or 5 years earlier?
I love that question. I'll answer it in part, but maybe allow me to let Naisenya begin, and then I'll come in.
So I think everyone knows that Safaricom started a journey to transition to become a technology company a while back. We have always been known as a telecom company, but now we want to put a stamp in Safaricom being a technology company. So why we started Decode at the time, when the journey started to become a technology company, Safaricom had about, and to be specific, digital IT, where George is our captain. He's the captain of the digital IT ship. We had around 250 developers. It has now grown to about 841 developers. So how do you actually create an environment where these developers can come together, showcase their engineering excellence, their expertise, the frameworks they are actually using, hence Safaricom Engineering Summit. But then we also noted that when we were recruiting for the talent, we had a big gap between what we need as Safaricom and what is being taught at the universities. So last year, if you remember, we also launched the Safaricom Engineering Community, which is a community outreach where we are not just upskilling, but as our president would like to say, mambo ni matatu, we are upskilling, certifying, and placing. So our mission for this year is actually to upskill 1,400 youths in Kenya. And we are doing this by actually creating 10 centers of excellence on the 10 on-demand skill set. So from software engineering, AI, robotics, IoT, we are partnering with the different universities to now co-create a curriculum so that whatever the industry needs, not just Safaricom, if Microsoft, Google, Akina KCB, Equity are now looking for talent, we know instead of sending out an advert and saying, oh, I want M-Pesa developers, we know that there is a curriculum that Safaricom Engineering Community has co-created with, let's say, University of Nairobi, and then you go and pick the best talent from University of Nairobi for M-Pesa, you go to the Dan Kimathi and pick the best developers on robotics and IoT. So we are not just trying to have an industry where all the developers have the necessary skills. but also through the industry digital talent platform, which we're going to launch at Decode. We are creating a marketplace where instead of developers going and looking for jobs, we are now saying all these partners come and post your jobs, and then these are the developers that we have upskilled, and you can now pick them. So
also like talent sourcing or something.
Yes, it's a talent sourcing. So watu wenye walimaliza university kama mimi kitambo, we would actually have to either work from office to office. Now we are saying the future is here. We are going to create a platform, and you no longer have to go and chill at Jivanji Gardens.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
That's very interesting.
George?
No, sometimes you hear someone in your team explain something, and you just know that the penny has dropped. Not much to add. I think just to say that, we are facing tremendous challenges on our continent. And as a country, as leaders in technology, we have to say, what are we doing to address these challenges of this century? And as the team in digital and IT in Safaricom, we said skills is important. I've seen small kids when we were in Makadara a few months ago, just first time teaching them about coding, making games. And one of the things you might question is if you play FIFA, you won't find Musa Otieno in the game.
Yes.
Because sio sisi tunaunda hizo game. Hawezi pata game ya zetu. Utapata kati, shake, and those things. So one of the core key things we're saying is, if we can believe in ourselves, both at the engineering level and at the creative level, we can begin to create content and experiences that are for us. We're even struggling as a country to get gaming companies to bring their content closer to us. What does that mean? A Kenyan good gamer is playing their game so well, but when they go to compete internationally, they have latency issues.
Yeah.
The closest one, if I'm not wrong, to our country is in South Africa. But instead of kuomba, let's create our own. I even tell people, why don't we even have our own social media? I believe this is the place where those things are going to happen. So I'm quite excited about it. I'm enthusiastic about it. And I believe that we may have gone into this program with X in mind, but we might get Y out of it. And what I love about Decode is sometimes we get things that are beyond what we expect.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's very interesting. Now, I've heard some very interesting things from Naisenya on top of what you said, George, in terms of what they're doing in the Safaricom engineering community. Now, other than that, what other impact is there that you can outline about the summit? I know it's only been just held, we only had the first edition last year, and it might be too early, but at least at this point, what can you say has been the impact of that first edition of the summit now going into the second edition?
One of the most interesting, so we sit in a larger group. Safaricom also is part of Vodacom group. They noticed.
Yep.
And they told us, hey, we've never done this in Vodacom. Can you guys help us set up one for Vodacom in Africa? And so one of the core things that we did is to position both Safaricom and Kenya as a place where there is great things happening in technology. We bring some of the largest technology companies there. As Naisenya mentioned, we'll have Huawei, Oracle, Google, AWS, and many others there. And they begin to see, last year we had even Mozilla, they begin to see and realize that our guys here are not in class 1.
Yep.
Kuna watu hapa wakona PhD. And ile nilisema, sometimes people have this perception of Africa that ukienda huko there is only huts. Afu unakuja huko unapata high-rise buildings. It is that story that we've looked to tell. An interesting thing also in Decode is we've hired people
Yes, we have.
out of the summit.
Yeah.
So the people who came, participated, One, they got jobs and they work in Safaricom. But also, I think a big thing, and sorry to repeat this, is we've been known as a telco with fintech, M-Pesa. Now we're saying we're a technology company, and this is the home of engineering talent. And we've seen a very deep interest in getting us into the conversations of how we can use innovation and technology to transform lives in Kenya and Africa. And I think Decode is one of those places that it comes home, that it's not just talk, it's not just in our annual reports. People can come and we can showcase and they can see what we're doing. The benchmark we have is not being the best in Kenya or in Africa. We want to be the best in the world. And so we showcase the same type of things that people can go see in Europe, in Asia, in America. We want them to see that it's being done by people with the same pigment as you and I, that we don't need to board a plane to see how to do great things in coding, in cloud, in big data. That just people like you and I who are born in some village and were taking mabuyu and maziwa ya nyayo. I don't know if Naisenya took maziwa ya nyayo, tetra pack ya orange. But even the ones who came after, who played shake, who played kati, who played ball imefungwa na makaratasi na kamba, are actually not where we always were. Which is great. There's great industries that have developed in this country, but also in technology, we have a voice. It's not just M-Pesa. It's way more.
And actually, just to add to what George has said, I think sometimes when we say transforming lives, people think something grand. But I think for me, what took me aback, because last year's Decode was the first ever Decode, I didn't understand what the impact was. So when we were doing the setup the day before, I went to Sarit and there were all these people. Guys were doing the fabrication. We had cleaners, we had dancers doing their dry run. We had camera guys, we had MCs. So I actually understood that because we've decided to do something for the developers, everyone else at the end of the 2 days was going home with something. So you don't necessarily understand what impact you're having, but it gave me a wider perspective that we are not just doing this for developers, but we have an impact on the local economy. Na kwanza saizi economy ni mbaya sana. Yes.
Yeah. Oh, very interesting. And what can you say are some of the takeaways from all the sessions last year? What are some of the few things you picked that were probably of interest to you as a person, also as someone who's in the hot seat in the kitchen preparing the upcoming edition, and what might probably interest someone who's looking forward to come to the summit or who's still undecided and might still make up their mind?
You know, one of the most interesting, totally unexpected, I always encourage people when you go into such a summit, expect the unexpected. I did not know that the devs, some of them for the first time, they got on LinkedIn and they started sharing their pictures. And I was very particular last year and I told people we're not going to have PowerPoints. I want developers on the stage sharing what they're doing. And I didn't know the impact it would have as they would take people through it, show code, show what they had built, take questions. We put the developers at the fore, not the leaders. Us leaders, we were serving. The developers were showcasing what they do. We took people deep into the kitchen. We showed them some of the great things Safaricom does that you don't see on the billboards. The billboards, you see the end product that we're launching, Fuliza. But you don't see some of the great things that the team has done. And we are hoping to do that. We have a government booth where we'll be talking about how we built Hustler Fund and My County and the work behind it. And so as Safaricom, we are working to be open. We're talking about being transparent and simple and honest. That's a place where we open up the magic. And it's not for us to say we've done this and the rest of you should not know what we're doing. It's to say we've done this is how we've done it, and we want more of you to be part of it. And I just saw the posts that some of our engineers did, and it took me almost 3 or 4 weeks to do my post because I was so busy reading their posts and their own experiences. And you realize when you run things, just like you guys do your show, there's different lenses and audiences that look at things. And that for me was the most impactful, that people who had probably never done a post on LinkedIn had their own picture and they were showing I was on stage and this is what I was saying. And I'm hoping this year that if we probably had X hundred people doing it last year, we have thousands this year.
Yeah.
And so we are working. I know Naisenya is stressed on the program because it's only 2 days to see how inclusive it can be. But we also believe Decode is living and moving. It's not just the 2 days. Even as we go to the next Decode, this is the spirit of Safaricom engineering community is going to continue. Naisenya, what did you take away?
I think what most people don't know is because of Decode last year, Safaricom has now for the first time an innovation framework. Last year we had a hackathon between Safaricom, sponsored by Safaricom and AWS and Safaricom and Mozilla. And based on the learnings that we got from last year, now we have the innovation framework. Another key takeaway from last year was to involve everyone in the ecosystem. So Safaricom, as George had mentioned, Safaricom Engineering Summit this year is not just about developers, but we are now actually involving everyone, the creatives, the innovators, the entrepreneurs, government guys are all welcome to come and see that Safaricom is not just building in Kenya, but building in Kenya by Kenyans for the world.
Oh, interesting. So you actually basically covered, the question I was supposed to ask about, of course, what attendees should expect. So just moving forward, what does the future of the summit look like? I mean, do you see, Safaricom hosting it, for the next 5 years, or something? What basically plans are there for the summit in the coming years?
I want us to go global.
Yeah.
And I think this is probably the last time we're just going to host this summit mainly around Kenya.
Oh, okay.
Like next year it's going to Africa.
Wow.
And then we're going global. And we say this needs to be the heart of software engineering across the continent. And we want people, it's a renaissance. And so it's going to come out in different ways for different people. But just the way, as I said, they talk about Africa being the cradle of mankind and learning beginning in Timbuktu. We believe that software engineering should be homed here, and people should come here to showcase what they're doing. But also we get to a place where we say, why are we always importing technology? We should be building technology here, creating jobs and exporting technology and opportunities first to Africa and to the world. And so that's what we're looking at. As I said, we are kicking off, we call it a revolution.
Yes.
It's not an event, it's a revolution. And I can tell you from this event and the launches we'll be doing, you will see 10 times more by the time we're doing the next Decode.
Yeah, we're interesting. Naisenya, what the future look like?
I was having a conversation with some developers today, and it sparked what we should do. Like already we are ready for Decode, which is happening next year. But now the devs from the Safaricom engineering community are now asking, Sawa, you guys have a packed program for the next 2 days. Are you going to ensure that in the next year's Decode, yani they are already planning for next year's Decode, that you're going to slot the engineering community in and give us 2 hours for us to showcase what we've learned in the community. So what are these new innovations that we have actually come up because we have benefited from what we've learned in the community? And I was like, okay, we actually hadn't taken into account the community, because at the end of the day, Safaricom Engineering Summit is a program under the Safaricom Engineering community. So for us, how do we ensure that we give them a slot and then have training sessions? I know we are going to unveil a certification program by Safaricom at the Engineering Summit. But then how then do we scale the training session so that next year's Decode, we have immersions or workshops as a side event? Yeah.
But the interesting thing, just to add, just Naisenya, we grew we launched our engineering community at the last Decode, and now we have how many members?
We are over 5K members.
Yes.
Yeah,
wow,
and
okay.
that does not include the 7 universities that we visited in this financial year alone. Yes.
Very interesting.
Yes.
So that means when George is looking at what to tell the budgets people, is you should be extending the summit by an extra day. You because you've already exhausted 2 days, and chances are if you are going international, you're going beyond Kenya's borders, and there's every counter to see why you should do that. There's Safaricom Ethiopia now.
Yeah.
We need to see those guys coming from Addis to come and show us what they've been up to, right?
Yeah.
So that means you guys should be considering an extra day. But the 11th, 12th,
I want a week. but beyond the summit, so there's the 2 days, but there's other things we're doing.
Yeah.
So we have some things we're doing on the environment. We have a correctional facility we're visiting. I'll just let Naisenya talk about it. We have some engagements at a university level at high school. So the 2 days is the big event. But that whole week is going to be Safaricom Engineering Community Week. Naisenya, just talk about the other institution engagement.
Yeah. So before Decode, I know maybe you've seen on LinkedIn or on Safaricom social media pages. So as part of what we are doing as a community, we have the Build by Safaricom campus tours. We'll be visiting Laikipia University on the 4th, that is on Wednesday this week, for a software engineering workshop. And that will kickstart our engagement for 1 year. The other key thing that we are planning to do as part of our CSR, Safaricom Engineering Community will be visiting the Kabete Reform School for boys. So other than just teaching them a bit of tech, we have a small group of men in digital IT. They call themselves the Man Cave. So they will be taking some supplies to the schools. They will play some games with the boys and also just have conversations around many issues. Mimi sijui hizo ni gani. George will expound, but they will
How we can shave our
yes.
beards. What my daughter told me, they need to shave. Hizo ndio tutaongea.
Yeah, so they are going to have conversation around many issues with them. We also started as part of what we are trying to do for the Safaricom engineering community. We kickstarted the tree planting activity at Kanali. Our key mission for this year is to actually plant and nurture 5,000 trees. So when we had the rains, we planted around 500. So it's an ongoing process. And at the end of the financial year, Safaricom financial year ends in March next year. We plan to have actually planted the 5,000 trees. So it's not a 2-day thing. It's a 1 year program. Yeah.
Interesting. Now we've had at length about the summit and everything. Can you give us your closing remarks? We start with you, Naisenya. If you are to sum up our entire conversation today and the summit and everything, and
I think for me, my closing remarks would be, I know Meg Whitman alisema, why what?
Why Kenya?
Why Africa? Why Kenya? I think for me, I would say, why Africa? Why Safaricom? Yes.
Wow. every generation has a challenge that they must face. And, one of the things I was reminiscing the other day at the show was, how did this show come up? And for those of us, tulikunywa maziwa nyayo, Moi was everything. And in that generation, we saw a lot of advancements in education, in agriculture, and also in the arts. Those are the days tulikuwa music festivals. And, I recall going to State House, Nakuru, to perform for the head of state and many state functions. The country certainly had a certain reputation at that time, and music for sure was one of the big ones, and agriculture. In this day and age, when I had the president talk about AI, yesterday I happened to be in a church where he was talking about digital skills. In this generation, and my challenge to fellow people in technology and leaders, our call is around digital technology and how we will use that to not just be a shining beacon of Africa, but to liberate our people and create new opportunities, connecting people to people, people to businesses, people to government. And we don't need to do it as a automation or just another program. It needs to be at the center. And so my closing remarks is Decode is where it all begins. We see a lot of great support from this government with their whole focus on the digital economy. We've pegged on that to bring creatives. And so we want these two groups to come there. And I don't know what the crucible will bring out, but I just see we will definitely be igniting Africa's digital renaissance.
Thank you. I have been your host, Chenze Emmanuel.
And Nick Kanali.
See you in the next episode. This is the first episode of a series that we are doing on the Safaricom Engineering Summit, the second edition of Decode. So we'll see you in the next one. Thank you.